Hello, welcome back. This is my October wrap-up. I have read 15 spooky books in October. Now let's break it down. The first book I started in September, but I finished this in October because I just wanted to be done with it. And that was A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara. And I have to say, I didn't cry. I've seen many reading vlogs and many of my favorite people were reading this book this year. Actually, most of the people did this in quarantine. But this is a book that I still think about. It's been a month since I finished this, and I still to this day think about this book. The characters, the story, the whole writing style, the scenes, they just stayed with me. And as soon as I feel the strength in myself, in my soul, I don't know, then I will make a book review about this book. But for now, I have to say it has really, really touched me. I think it was a beautiful piece of work. It's shaking, it's devastating as any really, truly moving piece of art should be, I think. I gave it 5 stars. It made me feel many emotions. I was disgusted, I was angry, I was sad, I was a tiny bit depressed. I was never relieved. This is not a relief kind of a book, but I enjoyed it very much. I actually listened to it and then read it online like simultaneously, so it was quite an experience. I don't know if I would recommend reading this book to anyone, but I am glad that I did read it, and I actually went to get the physical copy because I want to go through some of the stuff like in a physical book. But it was a 5-star read. If that tells you something, then that's it. Then the second book that I finished, I have it here. In a Dark, Dark Wood by Ruth Ware. This was my first Ruth Ware that I have ever read in my life, and I really, really liked it. I mean, after A Little Life, you tend to be just down a little bit after you finish the book, and I liked this really, really very much. The language or the writing style reminded me of chick lit books I've read in the 2010s when it was my thing to read only chick lit. Of course, it was mostly about girls and women, but I don't know, just the writing style, probably because she's British, I don't know, but it reminded me of my favorite chick lit books, so I really, really liked it. I loved the mystery. I didn't exactly see it coming, but I kind of had ideas, so it wasn't a shock either, but I found this really, really entertaining, really fun. It was perfectly paced. It was actually, in my opinion, written well. So I gave it a 4 out of 5 because 5 stars are, like the standout, masterpieces. But this is a really, really good book, so I'm kind of very, very hopeful because people say that Ruth Ware is getting better and better with every book, with each and every book. So this was the first book she has written, so I'm really, really looking forward to reading more from Ruth Ware. Highly recommend. The third book I've read was an audiobook. It was just a short mystery story. It was a Hungarian audiobook, and it is A Bolingbroke kastély kísérlete. And the author had a pseudonym which was in English. It was Thompson, like C. Thompson, but his name is Balsi Ödön. And it's like an Agatha Christie novel. Like people are in a castle and then someone dies and in a locked room. Who could have done it? And of course it's someone you wouldn't ever guess. It was a simple yet fun detective story. I loved it. Nice little mystery for October. Yeah. Then I went on the Ada Lorraine Warren book spree that I kind of promised myself that I would do, and I've read In a Dark Place, Werewolf, and what was the last one? Satan's Harvest. I like these books, but these are basically as if you were watching just BuzzFeed videos on spooky stuff. Kind of reminds me of those type of videos, especially when you're listening to them in an audiobook. Though I think the very last one was a whole darker than everything else before. It had a lot of bad things happening in there, and not just because of the demons. Like people were crazy in those. Like people were crazy in that last one, regardless of anything else. But these are fun to listen to, especially if you can get the audiobooks. I would recommend listening to those if you're in the mood. You know, these are 3-star listens for me, so there you go. Then it was fun because I have read Lock Every Door by Riley Sager. This is in Hungarian, Zárj minden ajtót. I liked it. It was a world that you can get lost in a little bit. I was kind of excited to go back to it. Every time, you know, I had to put it down for some reason for a little bit. I gave it 4 stars. I really enjoyed it. It's a nice mystery. You know, I was kind of suspicious of everyone, and it kind of turned on me because it was not what I was expecting. I enjoyed it. I am kind of curious about more Riley Sager, so it's going to be fun. I have Final Girls, so I think it should be fun to read more from Riley Sager. But the one thing I have to say is that the plot reminded me so much of the movie Thoroughly Modern Millie with Julie Andrews. It's not exactly that, but way too much like that. It was good, it was fun. It's a special thing. It's not in the movie it was a hotel, here it's an apartment complex, but it really did remind me of Thoroughly Modern Millie. And that was a little bit, throwing me off, but I enjoyed it. It's a fun mystery, it's a fun story, it's a fun world. I liked it, so 4 stars. Then I have listened to my first Joe Nesbo book of my life. It was called Headhunters, and it was okay. I know people are crazy about Joe Nesbo. This is my first one, and I've heard The Snowman is the best thing ever, so I have that actual book. I will read that soon, but I just don't know about this one. Headhunters was not my thing. It was okay, it was exciting, it was a good crime story, but I don't know, the style was a little bit too vulgar. The whole thing was a bit too vulgar for me. That's my opinion. Then The Beast. I have tackled The Beast. Desperation by Stephen King. I have made a reading vlog on this book. It took me a while to finish it. It wasn't that depressing after the few hundred some pages. I have said that in my reading vlog. It got kind of exciting, especially in the middle of it. And I have read it, but it's not my favorite Stephen King book ever. It's not. I mean, I way prefer Gerald's Game. I think it's such an underrated story. Or The Dreamcatcher, Bag of Bones. Those are so underrated Stephen King stories. I might want to make a video on those. And there are so many great books from him, not just The Shining and Misery and Pet Sematary, because those are the movies, like the more modern movies that everyone's crazy about. But this one just wasn't my favorite. I liked it. It's good Stephen King. It has his style, which I love. I love his voice in books. But this whole thing just wasn't my favorite ever. But I've read it. I'm glad I did. But it's done now. So it's gone from my currently reading list. Thankfully, this is done. Then I have listened to another fun little crime storybook. And it was by Milne, I think is how you say his name, the one who wrote Winnie the Pooh, and it's the Red House mystery. Fortunately, the foreword was a bit more entertaining than the story itself. It was fun, it was mysterious, it was like a classic crime story. It was kind of like Agatha Christie. I refer to her stories all of the time because everything else that is a whodunit reminds me of her. It was enjoyable. I have listened to that as an audiobook. That's always fun, but it wasn't that outstanding in my opinion. Then I have read Meringue Pie Murderer. I also have a reading vlog on this, so I will link all of the reading vlogs below for you so you can check those out. I have read Meringue Pie Murderer, as I have said, from Joanne Fluke. This is a Hannah Swenson mystery. I love the girl. I just love her so much. I love these stories. This is a perfect cozy mystery. If you like baking, it has recipes in it. It has murder in it. It is being solved. The girl is on point. Love Hannah Swenson. Then I have read another book, which it wasn't an audiobook, it was an ebook, which was on my never-ending currently reading book list. I will put it up here, and that was Pesta, Pinot, and Murder by Jamie Lee Scott. It was a short one, and it was surprisingly interesting. The most interesting parts were, in my opinion, actually the food blogger and food styling parts, because the girl is a food stylist and food blogger, and she's a chef. And she lives in a vineyard or near a vineyard. Like, her ex-husband's family has a vineyard and a bed and breakfast and a restaurant, and it's just a feel. I just kind of picture the whole vineyard and the whole place, and I kind of thought of France, even though they're in the US, but it was a feel. It just gave me the feels. It was a perfect cozy mystery. It's not the best written thing I have ever read, but still it had style, so it was able to take you with it. It was simple, it was fun, it was cozy. You know, I liked it. I think I gave it 4 stars because honestly it was very, very nice. Then I have listened to another audiobook, and it was in Hungarian as well. I will put it up here, and that was A Csejtei várúrnő Báthori Erzsébet. And the author is Péter Katalin. So what I just said in Hungarian was Lady of the Castle of Csejte, Elizabeth Báthori. And I thought for October to read about the Blood Countess, our own Blood Countess. I thought it would be fun to listen to a book about her life. But the thing with this book was that it was basically an extended version of a history lesson. It was stating facts, fact after fact after fact, and it was trying to analyze her using historical facts like her letters and people who were talking about her and other people's opinions. And yet, when it got to the trial, she was tried for the murders and the torture that she has been doing. And those court documents came out, so people made statements about the types of torture she did, and those were surprisingly detailed. That was really, really detailed, and I was like, oh my god, do I really want to listen to this? Actually, the blood bath was the last that I don't even remember hearing her taking a bath in blood at all in those court documents, but she did every other thing that you could or could not even imagine to poor young girls. Don't even go there. This was a really historically accurate book. It was a history lesson. It was a little bit tiresome, but you know what? I guess now I know. Then number 14. Oh, I love this so much. I've listened to One for the Money by Janet Ivanovich, and I have to say, Stephanie Plum is my girl. If I love Hannah Swenson, then Stephanie Plum is my girl. She's my beach. I love her so much. I have to say, she's half Hungarian. It's not in the first book, but it's in the very beginning of the second book, which I am listening to right now. And I love her so much, not just because she's half Hungarian and she eats stuffed cabbage and stuff, but I just love her. I love her thought process. I love her energy. I love everything about her. And I have to say that the woman who reads the book, she does such a great job. She has that New Jersey accent on most of the time. It's just so enjoyable. It's such an experience to listen to those books, that when you listen to something that is written so well, it just it's such an enjoyment. It's such a good experience. So I loved Stephanie Plum. This was the first one, and I intend on kind of reading and listening to everything Stephanie Plum from now on. I've read the first when I was 20 years old, and I kind of forgot about that book. I don't even know what it was about. I know she was buying pocketbooks, and it kind of stayed in my mind how a purse for her is a pocketbook, and she's constantly calling purses pocketbooks. I guess it's her thing, so I just have to love it. And from now on, I'm just hooked on Stephanie Plum books. I just love them so much. I love all of them. And the last thing that I have read in October is A Pocketful of Rye by Agatha Christie. I have talked about this book. One of my favorite Miss Marple stories ever. So much fun. Classic, easy to read, exciting. You wouldn't ever guess what's happening. I was suspecting everyone. Turns out I'm wrong. I would never have guessed who it was. Amazing, amazing Agatha Christie novel. Perfect thing. So, this wraps up my October reads. All of them were spooky. This was everything for the month of October. And until the next time, read something. Stephanie Blanc. Bye bye.